Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today, we're discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 7, Episode 25. What You Leave Behind. The Dominion War ends, and Cisco completes his journey as the emissary of the Prophets. And this is the final episode. The end! Mission failed.
What? How has it failed?
Because his mission was to get Bajor into the Federation.
Oh yeah, then he totally failed.
Terrible job, Cisco. So, ignoring his original mission, how do you feel this mission went?
I'd say it went extremely well.
They beat the Dominion, kicked them in the face.
And they look cool while doing it. These are the best ship battles ever.
Oh, they were blowing up everything. That was great. I mean, it's no secret that I like a good space battle in my sci-fi shows, and this delivered. The highlight for me is when they get to the Cardassian defense fleet at the planet, and it's just a massive cloud of ships going off into the distance.
Yeah, all the ship stuff was so cool. They did neat camera work, and it stood out from all the other battle scenes in the show.
Notably, there was one tracking shot of the Defiant as it turned around. Not tracking shot,
really sweet.
It's like a GoPro shot. I don't know what the term is. To break this down for discussion, I guess there's two major halves to this episode. The first being the Dominion War, and the second being the Paraiths and Cisco's job as the emissary. I felt they were a little bit disconnected.
It was kind of jarring going back and forth. Every time there was a silent elsewhere, this is happening.
I would have liked it if the Paraith stuff had some consequence. I mean, okay, yeah, they'll trash the Alpha Quadrant and all that. That doesn't really mean a lot to me, and we know that's not going to happen.
I thought they would sway the war, or at least influence it somehow.
Yeah, it felt like these two plot lines could somehow have interacted. And they could have, because Odo was going to go to the Gamma Quadrant to cure the Great Link. So he had to go through the wormhole. Remember that thing?
Not until Jake looked at it at the end.
Yeah, it's still there. They haven't been to the Gamma Quadrant since Season 5, so... Yeah. The Paraith stuff could have interacted with the wormhole somehow. Like, shut it down. Driving Cisco to go and fight the last boss. It's just some small intertwining I felt would have helped, because it's a little jarring when Cisco suddenly just says, hey, I've got to go fight the last boss, bye.
Yeah, that was not a smooth transition. And it's weird because the plot lines aren't so far removed from each other. You could see how they could easily overlap a bit to make more sense.
It wouldn't need much. I'm not asking for much, and to be honest, they had no time. This episode was dense, and the pace was very high. So I can understand why it doesn't have anything. That's just something I would have liked. It maybe wouldn't have mattered if the whole emissary thing had been more established. All it has been pretty much up until the very end was just occasionally Cisco got random hallucinations that told him nothing useful. So, the concept that the Prophets had this plan to destroy the Paraiths permanently by getting their book burned up in their own fire whilst it was half unlocked by Space Hitler. This is a pretty elaborate plan. It felt kind of random, which is always the problem with the Prophet stuff.
They always feel random.
Okay, so let's talk about the Dominion War. The death toll mounted quite a lot in this episode.
Yeah. Just shy of 1 billion.
Well, we never saw those people. They don't really matter.
Okay.
More importantly, Damar was gunned down.
I was sad when that happened because he became so awesome.
It's a shame, and it's really arbitrary. We've complained about Star Trek writers making everything overly dramatic and giving people a hero's death and stuff, but he just gets shot in a corridor by a random Jem'Hadar.
Yeah.
And I really liked his last words.
I don't remember.
He looks up at Garrick and says, "Keep," and then just kills over. Presumably keep going, or
Keep the kettle on. Keep quiet about my rampant racism.
keep letting me get shot for goodness sake.
This was my dying wish, to die.
I really like it because last words, dying words, really annoy me. Why would you die specifically after you say something really meaningful?
Because it makes a better story.
It makes a sillier story.
But yes, I like it too, that they had the nerve to do that. He dies in a random little battle, and he doesn't have stirring last words. But it's sad because we spent the past few episodes getting pumped up about a Damar-led Cardassia, a new Cardassia.
He turned from a big jerk to an awesome jerk. And I don't know if it's because he was so effective at thwarting the Federation during his time on Deep Space Nine and with the Dominion. Like, he's a proper nasty piece of work. I don't know if it's because of that. When you start getting behind him, I don't know if it's like a rubber band. It pings back harder the other way. So when you get behind him, it's like, yes, go Damar. But yeah, he pegged it. Garrick's housekeeper pegged it.
Which made him lose his cool. He made a poor choice to come out of hiding and see if she's all right.
Garrick was kind of falling apart for a lot of this episode. Falling apart in Garrick terms.
It's a good qualifier.
Well, he made some flub moves, like running to Mila, and in his final conversation with Bashir, he was kind of cracking around the edges a little bit. Almost as if seeing his home world be destroyed, laid to ruin, somehow that slightly got to him.
So now we know how to make Garrett crack. Just kill 800 million people.
It depends which 800 million.
Cardis.
Whoa! Racist. Can't talk that way about the spoonheads. Leggett Broker got killed. You probably don't care.
I do not. He was ready to kill a bunch of Cardassians.
Well, I'm glad he died. He was a nasty piece of work. And I don't mean that in the same way that Damar was a bad guy, because Damar was good at his job. Broker was just sucking up to the boss.
Yeah, he was just trying to save his own hide.
At any cost. Which is funny, because there's a rule of acquisition about how it always pays to suck up to the boss. Not in this case.
Well, I think there's an understanding you're a Ferengi for that rule.
A Ferengi will die just like a Cardassian when they get stabbed in the back of the neck by a massive knife.
Maybe. We don't have conclusive evidence.
Fair enough. I'll give you that. When Team Kira are about to be executed by the Jem'Hadar, and then the Cardassian guards rescue them,
Yeah,
Kira instantly picks up a gun. She doesn't miss a beat.
of course. She's in rebel mode.
She nearly got blown to pieces. Even Garrick was in shock.
I don't think she went on that mission thinking she would survive it. At least she thought there was a good chance she wouldn't survive it.
I think she wanted to survive and reckoned she probably could if she played her cards right. She is Kira. But she's not afraid to die.
Definitely.
I've seen Klingons that are less brave than her. Who else died? Weyoun.
Poor Weyoun. No more clones.
Yes. Weyoun 6 compared the Weyouns to slices of pizza.
Pizza's all gone.
Yeah, that's the last slice. And there was 8 slices, which is a common number for slicing a pizza into. Which I wanted to say so much at the time. I wanted to say, yes, the pizza analogy is very accurate. There's 8 Weyouns.
Well, I've seen all the episodes now. Were there other instances of things you wanted to say, but you couldn't?
You predicted that Ducat would die in a fire.
I did?
No, that the show would end with a fire or something. I can't remember what it was. I wanted to say at the time, that's correct. He does die in a fire.
I say so much nonsense that I can't keep track of it all.
You're surprisingly accurate. So just to continue with character deaths, Kai Wynn got burned to shreds. Oh, I should say Ducat got poisoned.
Oh yeah, he died and came back. So he's actually Space Jesus, not Cisco.
I believe he's actually Space Lucifer.
Okay. Cisco sorta dies. Not really.
She kind of dies, sort of, not really, becomes a god.
He tells Cassidy, hey, I'll be back at some point. I think he's just making that up. The prophets didn't tell him anything to indicate that he'll return to the mortal plane. For all he knows, he's stuck there.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. A production reason.
Oh, they thought they might get another season or something?
No, it's more sensitive. That's why I use the word sensitive. Originally, he was not coming back. He would meet Cassidy in the vision and say, I'm Prophet now, bye! Hence how he would know only sorrow, because he'd never get to see his new kid.
Yeah.
Jake 2.
Jake.
Yes. But then Avery Brooks said, is it really a good idea that a black father abandons his child in the last episode of a TV show, abandons his unborn child? And while in the 24th century that is just a bit saddening, in our current time, that has kind of bad connotations. It's a bit racially insensitive. So they changed it to that he would be back at some unspecified time. Which isn't really a great improvement.
No, and it came off as a lie to me because we didn't see any evidence for it.
Talking of Cisco lying, Cassidy says, "Promise me you will not die." He says, "Yeah, sure, I promise."
That scene was weird anyway. Why even ask someone to promise that? Is that all it takes? Oh yeah, I promise. All right, now I'm not gonna die.
I can imagine Cisco keeping his word.
Yeah, if there's one person who can make that promise, it's probably Cisco.
He gets shot with a phaser, starts to disintegrate, and just rages out and undisintegrates himself.
I promise I wouldn't die. I would love for Kira to say that to Odo. Promise me you won't die. And he says, no, I can't. No one can promise that. Don't you understand how promises work?
It's too much like Team America. Ducat kind of died, but kind of is now with the Power Wraiths, which I think is supposed to be like hell.
But they're his buddies.
Yeah, he gets to chill with the villains.
He gets to chill with his drinking buddies forever.
They seem tormented, though. But then again, the cat's pretty tormented, so he might fit in.
It didn't even occur to me that that was a bad thing for Ducat. It sounded like a sweet deal for him.
I don't know if Ducat holds much meaning as a villain towards the end of the show.
That's because he doesn't.
I like Ducat as a character. He's magnetic on the screen, and Mark Alimo he's got the voice and the mannerisms. He's incredibly watchable. So I completely understand why he's there. It just seems that after the Deep Space Nine occupation, there was very little point to Ducat still being a powerful antagonist when he should be basically a sort of crazy homeless guy.
Right.
They leveraged all this Power Wraith stuff, but I think it was too little too late. However, I think it's fine. Getting rid of Kai Wynn and Cisco punching Ducat into a big fiery fire. It's all entertaining. It rounded off the episode nicely, tugged at the emotional heartstrings and stuff. It's just a little niggling feeling that it seemed a little arbitrary. I think I already said it's arbitrary.
It was arbitrary, but it's so satisfying to see Cisco spear someone into a lake of fire.
That is really cool.
That is totally appropriate.
Why would Cisco think that would work?
There's no reason that he should think that would work.
It's typical Cisco. He just does it anyway. He doesn't care about the laws of physics. He's been breaking laws all his life.
I'm going to spear him into this lake of fire, and then the prophets will save me, and it'll be fine.
He probably did think he would somehow survive.
Obviously.
Let's talk about Odo.
He has magic healing powers for some reason.
That could make sense. There are immunities that can be passed through blood transfusion. Perhaps this immunity is good transmitted.
Sure, that's all fine. But how did he know? He just knew. Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. This wasn't tested at all, but I know it'll work.
In a technical sense, the cure for the disease is just some chemical.
It's just cured goo.
No, I mean the actual cure is, I think Sloan said it was a peptide sequence. It's some molecule.
Okay.
He can change himself into the cure.
Fine.
And it didn't take 3 weeks, which is nice for plot reasons. They did something that I really like a lot when he links with the female changeling.
He shows his O face?
That's... Deep Space Nine has far too many O faces. It just does. Odo's always getting off on the link, and then Quark's, whenever someone brushes his ears, he's got a big O face. where Cisco beats someone to death with his fists. That's not it. When he links with the female changeling, he links for just a brief second, but immediately there's a complete understanding of the situation, as if they've had a long discussion, an agreement.
Okay, yeah.
The information transfer seems to be almost instant. Like, they completely understand each other and are on the same page.
That's how it should work.
Yeah, they've been talking about how the link is a lot better than just having a chat. But it hasn't been yet. And now it is.
And they showed it off well. They came away from that as if they had this deep understanding that took long, heated conversations to get to.
The level of trust he shows is beyond what humans would get unless they'd been together for years. But it seemed that way. It seemed like a lot happened in a very brief link, which is what I want the link to be like. It's supposed to be super good. And it was, so I like that.
Was it jarring for you to see the founder not diseased? I forgot what she looked like, and it was kind of weird.
She looks a lot younger and sort of prettier all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Then again, if you sellotape a load of puff pastry to someone, it doesn't really do much for their looks. I thought it was strange how she was going to submit to the Federation authorities for her crimes.
Yeah. Why would she agree to that?
What can they do? They have the death penalty, but I'm assuming they won't do that because that's... If someone agrees that maybe you're not such bad guys and they should maybe go to your prison, you don't turn around and kill them. But then she did kill 800 million people, at least. Like, she has 1 billion lives on her hands, let's say. What, did they throw her in jail?
They put her in an ugly jar.
Changelings don't die, though, or they live a very long time.
That one changeling died that was hiding in that ship.
It was injured, though. Or wounded or something. There's something wrong with that one, I think. Because the Vorta said she could have saved the changeling.
Well, Section 31 could re-poison her.
That's a worry. But she can't be re-poisoned because she has had the cure.
Oh, yeah.
So she can just cure herself. But they could make a new disease and re-contaminate her.
Right, mutate it.
I guess they'll just give her a sort of 6-week course in how to not repeatedly commit genocide. Instructional tapes and stuff.
There are also continuing education classes that she has to enroll in.
It's just to do an online quiz and get at least 80%. Be multiple choice.
Should you kill 800 million people? Yes or no?
Write the number of people that you would suggest killing on the line. If you would like to sit this test in another language, click here. Martok was celebrating on Cardassia amongst a bunch of dead bodies.
That seems typical for a Klingon, though. That did strike me as odd for him. I could see why the others found it distasteful, but that's got to be nothing to a Klingon.
I liked that because we've said many times that Cisco and Martok seem to be two sides of the same coin. They both basically just want to fight and win a lot. And they're good at it, and that's fine. That's, in a war situation, that is often the right choice. But here we see the distinction. Cisco isn't that cool with partying around a bunch of people that have just died because of your actions. Whereas Martok thinks it's a good laugh.
Cisco doesn't like it because dead people can't tell you how great you are.
So he's a little bit Cardassian as well.
Yeah, he's a mix of Cardassian and Klingon. Very little human.
So he's basically got all the good traits of all the competent species.
Yeah, no Bajorn in him.
Pretty much, but he is Bajoran Space Jesus. And like the real Jesus, he became God, who he was all along. That might not be accurate with Jesus. I'm not that read up on the Jesus thing. Most of the things I know about real Jesus, I learned from Deep Space Nine.
Some of that's got to be canonical.
It maps fairly well, yeah. O'Brien and Bashir had to break up.
I don't like O'Brien's reason for leaving.
What, he has to get a really nice job.
I don't see that fulfilling O'Brien. He wants to constantly be tinkering and fixing problems, not teach a bunch of kids.
There's plenty going on Earth, I'm sure.
Yeah, I know it'll pay well and it's a cushy job, but I still don't see
no money.
Oh, right. So I meant cushy job as in there are lots of couches.
If anyone needs a break from being constantly harassed and threatened and shot at and killed, it's O'Brien.
But I think he secretly loves that stuff.
That's just the PTSD talking.
I don't think he would know how to function if he weren't constantly fearing for his life.
So he would get some sort of opposite PTSD on Earth. He's not had enough horrific experiences lately. He would get edgy and jittery and stuff.
Yeah, he would start running with scissors and stuff. He would need to introduce some kind of chaos into his life.
It's O'Brien. His life will be full of chaos anyway. He's not a young man anymore. He's a lot older than Bashir.
Plus, O'Brien leaving DS9 means that place is going to descend into a mess.
It's a mess anyway. It doesn't matter. The war's over. Bajor's rubbish. They're not probably going to go to the Gamma Quadrant that much because they probably just want to leave the founders alone. It's losing its importance. If it falls to bits without O'Brien, then, good riddance. Cardassia's not going to seize the wormhole anymore. They're wrecked. Vic Fontaine hosted an end of the war party.
We got a nice song. Good break.
Very moving. There was a load of Easter egg sort of things going on in that end of the war party.
I caught none of them.
You probably weren't looking for them. But
That is correct.
Pretty much all the guests in Vic's casino are people from the show, or there's one table that's got all the writing staff.
Oh.
But it's really funny. There's Wayun and Damar chatting to each other just behind Cisco's head when he's giving the toast. It's Casey Biggs and Jeffrey Combs. Max Grodenchik, Rom, is there. And the actress for Ishka is there. And a bunch of other people.
That's an excellent way to throw in a bunch of people in there. And I like that they found the time to have a song in this episode, even though it's packed and there's a bunch of stuff they had to get to.
They did pace themselves well. I said it was packed earlier on and that the pacing was fast, but it wasn't too fast. There were some little moments here and there, like when Damar's resistance cell is laughing that they can't get through a cargo bay door. Cargo bay? Through the back door. And Garrick pining about the loss of the old Cardassia a few times. There's stuff there that took some breathing space. It wasn't probably as fleshed out as it would have been in a more relaxed episode. But they did that. They had time for the song. They had time for a really long pan out from Jake's face staring out the window. Which, by the way, is a very good closing shot.
It's a good closing shot, but I think it's weird we end on Jake.
Is it that weird?
Well, I guess not. We end on the next Cisco.
Plus, he's always been the human element to the show. He's the civilian, the kid, the innocent.
It felt weird because he's been so absent this season.
Yeah, he has been missing. He never got to say goodbye to his dad.
Or his mom.
Okay. Salt in the wound there?
I'm just saying, he has some experience.
Yes, you are correct. He has lost every single parent he ever had without being able to say goodbye to them.
Cassidy's next.
Oh god, okay. Cassidy was drinking during the end of the war party.
I noticed that, but it's in the holodeck, so...
Yeah, I expect it's not alcoholic, or they have solved the problems associated with that so that pregnant women can get absolutely blotto. There was a series of flashbacks at the end when everyone was leaving or doing whatever they were doing.
That was sweet. Except Odo gifted his potty bucket for some reason.
It's a memento. It's the only thing he has ever owned.
Still strange. Still going with strange.
Probably still smells of porridge from that time Nog filled it with porridge. Did you notice anyone absent from the flashbacks?
Jadzia.
Yes.
I actually didn't notice that until you asked just now, and I quickly thought of it.
Well, Worf's flashbacks are a bit clunky because he spent a lot of time with Jadzia. They couldn't get the rights from Terry Farrell's agent to use her images, but I think it was some sort of miscommunication because she never said that they couldn't.
That doesn't surprise me, though. That you hear stories like that all the time, where someone speaks out of turn and says, "No, you can't do this," and then the actual person had no awareness.
Yeah. It's odd because they used a photo of her and her voice earlier in the season in Penumbra. But that's how licensing stuff often works.
His montage did come off as comical because it was all battle and sexy times, which a Klingon would reminisce about.
That's a good life for a Klingon. Or a human, or anyone, really. There's one thing about the flashbacks that really irks me.
Go on.
Okay, this is going to get really specific, but in Jake's flashback, there's a clip of him lying at his dad's side, who's in a hospital bed. Now, there's a few places they could have taken this, but I think they took it from the episode The Visitor, the one where Cisco disappears and reappears randomly throughout Jake's life.
Yeah, I definitely did not forget the visitor.
Okay, well, just to be clear, that episode only exists in Cisco's memory.
He transplanted it to Jake.
What?
With his mind.
It's a good choice for a flashback because it's if you're going to choose a Jake episode, probably that one. But when it's a flashback, I kind of think it's like the person remembering it, especially how they're looking around with sort of melancholy in their eyes before the flashbacks start. But then he remembers something that never existed to him.
What you are saying makes sense, but when I watched it, I didn't think of it as them remembering those things.
Worf looks around.
I know, but it's too weird for me to think that they are accessing these memories from this camera point.
Oh, but I don't mean it's literally them having some hallucination of stuff that happened to them in the past, kind of memories. It's just supposed to give you the feeling that the character is pondering all the time they've spent there. But that's not time spent by Jake. That never happened to Jake. Not that version of Jake, anyway. It's a pedantic point.
I like it.
Okay. Here's a terrible idea.
I'm intrigued.
The female changeling says she's not going to end the war, but we know that Odo can mimic her perfectly. So
Yes.
if she didn't relent, they could have just killed her and said, okay, Odo, just tell them it's over. So that could have been a good plan B. I just thought of that whilst I was watching it.
Odo would never agree to that, though.
Okay, kill Odo and generate a hologram.
Go find that super advanced changeling who could turn into fog.
Yeah, Lass. He's infected then.
They have the cure, no biggie.
But they don't have him, though.
Oh yeah, he's gonna die.
He's off spreading the disease to all the other 100 changelings out there.
This was all secretly about STDs.
The whole show.
Yeah.
So it's part Jesus, part STDs.
It was a Trojan horse for STD awareness.
They really went out of their way with the sort of Trojan horse aspect. In fact, there's very little sound advice about STD protection in this show. The only real advice they give is abstinence, which studies have shown is terrible advice. And it doesn't even work on Odo. He links up anyway. They say, no, that's a really bad idea. Don't do that. And he's like, no, I just think it would be a good time. Just don't worry.
There's some good advice in there. If someone makes an unwanted advance, spear them into a lake of fire.
Ducat had his back turned.
He made Cisco go down to his knees.
Yeah, he was going to get killed after that. Do you have a quote to sum up this episode and show?
You may win this war, Commander, but I promise you, when it is over, you will have lost so many ships, so many lives, that your victory will taste as bitter as defeat.
I wonder if that was foreshadowing when Cisco would pour the drink out.
That's a great point, because she does say taste, and then he spits out his blood wine.
He doesn't even drink it.
Okay, I lied. He doesn't even drink it.
You didn't lie, you were mistaken.
No, I lied.
Oh, okay. I was mistaken.
Oh, he should have tasted it then. So then he could say, this is bitter. And then we could say, this is terrible writing.
So they should have made it easier for us to sort of pick apart, because praising things is difficult.
Exactly.
Agreed. I liked how the founder was increasingly erratic during this episode and previous ones.
She knew the end was coming.
Yeah, she's completely lost her cool by this one. She hasn't actually lost her composure, but in terms of her ability to think through situations, it's just she's not there anymore. She's just sort of winging it.
Yeah, I felt that when she said kill them all, basically, when speaking about Cardassians.
Wayne just says, that'll take some time.
He's not wrong.
He doesn't care at all. At the end of the seasons, we usually choose our favourite episodes and our least favourite episodes from the season.
Yes.
Do you have any choices?
I do, and I will tell you them.
Go for it.
My favorite episode this season was the Siege of AR 558, or is it 558? That one.
Whatever. Yeah. It's only not called The Siege because they already called an episode The Siege. That's a great episode. I quite like Field of Fire, even though it's kind of silly. The one where Ezri's hunting the serial killer with the see-through walls gun. Which, by the way, they should have took with them.
Yeah, why did they not use that? The ultimate cheat weapon. I bet Cisco broke it and said, we can't use this.
It's just too... It's like putting OBrien and Kira together. It's too much.
Yeah, we can't win this way.
It'll feel cheap to win the war by just hiding in Garrick's housekeeper's basement and assassinating the entire Dominion.
No one wants to sing a song about that. He's thinking long term. He wants a good Klingon song about his war efforts.
Yeah, good episodes there. What's your least favorite one? I think I can predict this.
Let's see. Guess.
Prodigal Daughter?
How did you know?
Because it's pretty much the only one that's not that good in this season.
Well, The Emperor's New Cloak wasn't great.
The Emperor's New Cloak was a bit sort of boring. If anything, it was hard to care about what was going on. Being boring is a really bad thing for an episode of a show to be, but at least it was competently put together. Like, if it's boring, it's a failed episode. And that's fine. Some episodes will always be boring, or certain people will find certain ones uninteresting, and so on. But Prodigal Daughter was actually badly put together. It's meandering and has a few different plot threads that are just so unrelated to what's going on that even if you wanted to care, you almost couldn't. And worst of all, it could have been a good episode. It's the potential, I think, the lost chance for it to be good.
That's probably why it stings so much. I take it that was also your least favorite?
Yeah, I'd probably pick Prodigal Daughter. To be honest, that one is the one that kind of sticks out as being subpar. But every other episode of this season is great. There's plenty of ones. Treachery, Faith in the Great River is another good one. It's Only a Paper Moon with Nog and Vic.
This was a phenomenal season.
Oh yeah, season 5 and 6 were both excellent, and this one is. I think there's less crazy good episodes in this season, but it's so consistent.
Yeah, it's consistent at a higher level than other seasons.
Pretty much every episode this season, you sit down and you know you're in for a treat. What about MVP?
My MVP for this season is Damar.
How could it not be?
Yeah, what a awesome transformation that character took.
Least valuable player, who was terrible. Bonus points if you don't pick Esri.
I'm not going to pick Esri.
Oh,
I kind of hinted at who I'm picking earlier.
Jake?
Yeah, and it's not his fault. He's just not there. So it's hard to be valuable if you're not even putting in time.
I might pick Worf as least valuable.
That's a good choice.
He didn't do that much, did he? Did he
No,
really do anything other than just add a lot of angst to the sort of senior crew?
he mostly glared at Bashir.
Yeah. I mean, his wife pegged it, and that's very sad. He did his little sort of grieving thing and then just had a lot of awkwardness with Ezri and Bashir, and that's kind of funny. Maybe I'm missing an episode. Maybe there's
I
something I'm
don't
missing.
think you are. He was his most comedic this season. He was used well in that way.
He's always been great at the comedy stuff. You're right, he was funny. And to be honest, the angst between him and Ezri and Bashir is fairly watchable. It's just he never went on a punching rampage. And I kind of want Worf to go on a punching rampage. He did murder Weyoun, but to be honest, who hasn't killed Weyoun by the end of this show? We usually say, what do we hope for the future seasons, but there aren't any.
All right. It's a different timeline. There's a season 8. What do you want to see? I know you're dying to see Bajor become part of the Federation.
Am I? Who's going to be
Yes.
the next Kai? I don't know how Quark or the Vedic Council knew that Kai Wynn was dead because there weren't any witnesses that remained corporeal. I don't know. This show is rounded out really well. I don't think a season 8 would benefit it.
It wouldn't. And they knew it was the end, and they sent off a bunch of characters. We won't have O'Brien anymore. We won't have Odo anymore.
You don't want to make a show about a space station that's really cool and has an awesome war, and then add an additional season that it doesn't need on the end. Especially a show that's accused of copying Babylon 5. It's a little Babylon 5 joke for you there.
And I don't know anything about Babylon 5, so thank you.
No problem. There's plot threads they could pick up for a season 8, but they kind of do this thing where they write novels. People write novels to make up like the continuing story. If you're a real fan and you like reading stuff that's probably not high literature, they're supposed to be reasonably fun. There's only one that's ever acclaimed to a high standard. People say it is actually really worth reading, and that is called A Stitch in Time by Andrew Robinson.
Does it have a lot of Kira and Garrick?
Well, Andrew Robinson plays Garrick.
Yes.
And it's the story of Garrick and Cardassia after the end of season 7. It's supposed to be good if you're interested in feeling where the show could have gone since then. That's your best bet. But personally, I feel that the war could have had some extra stuff after. Like, ending at the end is, in storytelling terms, it's quite good, but stuff happens after wars that's kind of interesting as well. But I'm happy with where it ended. How about you?
Well, I'm happy where it ended. I don't need another season, but getting at what you're talking about, there are consequences to massive war, and that would be cool to explore that. And I could see Garrick going mental and making Cardassia rise up and trying to do evil things. But
No. He's not a mentalist. He's not killed a cat.
But they laid lace to his land.
Yes, so what it needs to do is recover, not militarize the shreds of civilization that are left.
He needs revenge.
Well, go read A Stitch in Time and find out if that happens. I haven't read it, so maybe it does.
Given that title, it sounds like there's time travel because they cannot resist putting some kind of time illusion in the title.
It could just be a tailoring illusion.
Wow, I should have thought of that first, but I thought of the baseball first.
Huh?
Baseballs have stitches.
Okay. You know which character Garrick is, right?
Yes! But
Okay.
the baseball is the main character of the show.
I liked how Kira had the baseball at the end.
I did too. I'm glad they had that in there. It's
Great.
not a true transfer of power unless you wield the baseball.
Oh, that's true. No one ever touches it, apart from Cisco.
Ducat had it when he took over the station.
That's right. But Cisco would have prevented him from touching the baseball if he had the chance. When Martok leaned over to pick it up, Cisco stopped him, and that's Martok.
Yeah, because it's the source of his powers.
Martok's the best guy ever, and even then, Cisco's like, no, you cannot touch the baseball. I guess all that's left to do is round up any remaining thoughts or feelings you have about the show. Anything else you'd like to say?
I love the show.
Are you now a Trekkie?
Well, how do you know if you're a Trekkie?
Can you do the Vulcan salute?
I can.
Okay, that barely shows up in Deep Space Nine, so that's irrelevant.
Did it even show up? I don't remember.
It doesn't actually show up that much in Star Trek at all, to be honest. It's fairly iconic, though, so I can see why it's associated.
There's even an emoji for it.
Yeah. Don't get me started on Unicode.
It's the fastest growing language. What do you have against it?
What, Unicode? Okay. It's been quite a ride.
It's been a fantastic ride, and I'm so glad you suggested this show. I'm sure I talked about it, or maybe I didn't. Whatever. I'll say it now. In the beginning, I avoided Star Trek for the longest time, and my fears were completely unfounded. And now I'm glad I know better.
For reference, the other shows are also good. Next Gen's a lot of fun. Original series is kind of dated, but it's fun. Very dramatic. Voyager's a good laugh. It's good if you want more Star Trek. And I think there's also a show called Enterprise.
I'm glad you got another dig in at Enterprise.
But this show is very much the sort of black sheep of... Oh god, I can't say that. That sounds really racist. I need another idiom for something that sticks out. This show is very much the odd one out of the Star Treks. It's way grittier and more alien than the rest of them. So if you like Deep Space Nine, you might not like the other Star Treks. Maybe you will. Maybe you'll find out on this very podcast. But for now, I think we can say goodbye to Deep Space Nine.
Goodbye, Deep Space Nine.
I didn't really mean that literally, but thanks.
Oh. Don't say thanks. I didn't say goodbye to you.
Look, I think we should just finish this here.
All right.
We should thank all our readers. If you've listened to us natter on about this stuff for the whole run of the show, then well done. If you've listened to them all, then congratulations. 10 points for you. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Those are non-transferable points.
Only redeemable in Quarks. And yes, let's go. Onwards to the next episode of Something New.
I never heard of that show.
Dear goodness. Right, that's it. Let's go.